This is Learn It Notes 410 and 49 for pre-algebra, and I am Mrs. McCowan. Today you're learning about Pythagorean theorem. We have 3 vocabulary words. Our benchmark today is to validate and apply Pythagorean theorem to find distance in real-world situations or between points in a coordinate plane. Our first vocabulary word is Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem, in a right triangle, the square of the length of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the lengths of the leg. A leg in a right triangle is an adjacent side to the right angle. The hypotenuse in a right triangle is the opposite of the right angle. So if I were to draw a diagram, this would be the hypotenuse, this would be a leg, and this would be a leg, because here's the 90-degree angle. So obviously, whatever is opposite the 90-degree angle is the hypotenuse, and the other 2 sides are considered the legs, leg A and leg B. And then the hypotenuse is labeled C. Okay, for number 1, they want us to write down the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So looking at my legs, I have 4 squared and 5 squared. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. So 16 plus 25 is 41. Now using my calculator, I have to find the square root of c. So anytime I find the square root of c squared, that is always going to equal c. So the square root of 41 is 6.4. And they have the approximate symbol because I'm obviously rounding to the nearest tenth, so it's approximately 6.4. Okay, now let's do letter B together. Find the length of each hypotenuse to the nearest hundredth. So they gave us the sides based on the coordinate graph. So we have to look at the coordinate graph to determine what they are. So looking at the coordinate graph, I have A is 9. And if A is 9, 9 times 9 is 81. B is 12. 12 times 12 is 144. Now I need to simplify my powers. That's what we just did. We multiplied. So now if I add 81 plus 144, I get 225. And the square root of 225 is 15. That is correct. So we found the positive square root. Obviously, I can never have a negative square root because it can't be negative 15 feet. That doesn't exist for a side of a triangle. So it always has to be positive. Okay, I'd like you to try 1A on your own. Please pause the video. Okay, and the answer to 1A you should have found was 8.6. Okay, looking at number 2 now, we have another triangle and we need to write down the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So looking at this, we don't know what b is, question mark. A is 7 squared, and they gave us c, which is 25 squared. So 7 times 7 is 49. 25 times 25 is 625. Now I need to get b all by itself, so I'm going to subtract 49 from both sides to get rid of the 49 and to just find out what does b squared equal. So I subtract 625 minus 49, and b squared now equals 576. So the last step I do is find the square root of 576 in my calculator, and that would be 24 exactly. So the answer to number 2, B equals 24. Please pause the video and do check it out, number 2, on your own. Okay, you should have found that the answer for check it out number 2, B equals approximately 11.3, or you could even taken it to the hundredths and said 11.31. That is correct. Okay, for the last one we have number 3. 2 airplanes leave at the same time from the airport. The first plane flies landing strip 350 miles south, while the other plane flies to an airport 725 miles west. So if I were to draw this picture as a triangle with a right angle, they're both leaving from the same place. This one flies west at 725, so that's like flying west 725. And then the other one is flying south, so that's flying this way, and they left from the same point. Now I want to know how much far apart they are, so that would be C. So now I'm going to enter these numbers into my equation. So 350 square root plus 725 square root, or excuse me, squared. So now I have 350 squared is 122,500. I know it's a very large number. And 725 squared is 525,625. So we simplified our powers by squaring the numbers. And so now I have to add them together and find the square root. So when I add these numbers together, I get 648,125. Find the square root of this number, and yes, it's always going to be a positive square root, and my positive square root is 805. That is correct. They are about 805 miles apart. Okay, please pause the video and do check it out number 3 on your own. Okay, you should have found that they were, for number 3, check it out, 13 miles apart. That was the correct answer. You could have written 13.0 or 13.4 miles. That would be correct. Make sure you don't forget your miles. That's your measurement. Okay, now we're going to go on to lesson 410. So turn to Learn It 410. Number 1, we have a diagonal length of a rectangular projector screen seen below. So we know that if we were to take just this triangle, this is the right angle, we are looking for the hypotenuse. That's correct. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. Excellent job. So now I'm going to use 7 squared plus 3 squared. So 7 times 7 is 49. 3 times 3 is 9. So 49 plus 9 is 58. That's correct. And then I take the square root of 58, and the square root of 58 is 7.62. That is correct. So we took the square root, find the square root, and we found that it was about 7.62 feet. Okay, please pause the video and do check it out number 1 on your own. Okay, you should have found the answer to be 14.1 meters or 14.14. They were rounding to the nearest hundredth, so you should have written down 14.14 meters. Okay, next one, number 2. Moving right along, we have points on this graph, and they want us to find the distances between the points to the nearest tenth. So looking at this, we have to use our distance formula. So it might be helpful to star this. This is called the distance formula, and we're going to use this to find the distance. So we have to do x2 minus x1, square that, plus y2 minus y1 and square that, and then solve. So our first point, they told us, is j, so that would be -4 minus 0, because this is my x1, this is my x2. Next I take my y2, which is 0, correct? And then I take, my y1, excuse me. And then I take a -3. And so I have -4 minus 0 is -4. 0 minus 3 is -3. So -4 times -4 is 16. -3 times -3 is 9. 16 plus 9 is 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. So the distance between J and K is 5 units. So how did I find this? Well, I plugged in my numbers and subtracted. So we did, and I'll show that again up here at the top, because I know I did that really fast, x2 minus x1, so that would be, and they gave them to us backwards. I don't appreciate when they do that. x2 was -4 minus x1, which was 0, and then y2, 0 minus y1, -3. That's how I found my units to be 5. Okay, let's try the next one. We're going to use the distance formula again, and we're going to substitute. So we first have to do x2, which is 4, x1, which is 5, y2, which is 0, and y1, which is -3. So 4 minus 5 is -1, 0 plus 3 is 3, and -1 times -1 is 1, 3 times 3 is 9, so the square root of 10 is approximately 3.2. So the distance between L and M is about 3.2. Okay, I'd like you to pause the video and try check it out, 2A and 2B on your own. Okay, so for the first one you should have found was 5 units, and for the second one it was 9.5 units away. Okay, last one, number 3, we have to tell whether the lengths form a right triangle. So sometimes when I have lengths, they don't form a right triangle. Can we see what the missing part is here? This one is too short, so it didn't form a right triangle. So we're going to check and see if these numbers work. Your largest number is always going to be your hypotenuse. That's correct. So we're always going to put our longest side as our hypotenuse, and then the other two sides are going to be your legs. The reason being is, if I look at my triangle, which side is always going to be the longest? The hypotenuse, so it's common sense that the longest length is always going to be C. So I solve 81, 169, 225. Oh, excuse me, this was 12. I put 13. So that should be 144. and then 225. And then 81 plus 144 is 225. So does that check? Yes. The side lengths form a triangle. Excellent job. Okay, let's check out letter B. My longest side is 13, so that's going to be my C. 8, 10 are my other sides, so 8 times 8 is 64, 10 times 10 is 100, 13 times 13 is 169. Does 169 equal 164? So the side lengths do not form a right triangle. Okay? I'd like you to try check it out, 3B and 3A on your own. Please pause the video. Okay, and you should have found that for 3A, the answer was they do not form a right triangle, and then the answer was they do form a right triangle. Excellent job. If you have any questions, please ask Mrs. McCown at the end of class.